Welcome to Peter and Ruffy's Football Show, your daily fix of football chat on STV. Delighted to have your company. The main topics to discuss tonight: Chris Commons apologises after another miserable night for Celtic in Europe. Aberdeen boss Derek McInnes has called on his players to get them back to the top of the Premiership table. We'll look at the weekend's fixtures across Scotland and in England, and we'll also look into that report from UEFA on the state of the game. Alan Ruff is alongside me, Peter Martin, and we've got an experienced pro in the boot room.
The Boot Room, sponsored by Third Dimension Framing.
Gordon Smith is alongside Alan Ruff to analyse not only European football but of course the domestic football at the weekend. Let's cut to the chase. Celtic were abysmal and lost 3-1 to Molde.
Yeah, I think you put it correctly, Peter. It was a dismal performance. I think the only thing they can take out of it was the possession they had, but in saying that, didn't do anything with it in the last third. And again, defensive frailties, singling people out, Izagiri, Ambrose, just not up to the European football. And it's now every game now that the two of them are culpable for something during the game.
I think when you look at the overall match, I don't want to focus too much on Chris Commons, because that would deflect away from talking about the meat and bones of Celtic in.
I think that I can out there and you feel you're doing a good job, and you know you've scored the goal that puts Celtic back in it at 2-1, and you think, you know, I'm still a threat here, you're the most creative player, and all of a sudden you're substituted. I can understand how he felt about that,
yeah. And
his anger came through, and he's apologising and everything like that. But you know, he had a good point to a degree, because that's not the player I would have taken off to make the change at this time. I don't think he's a big fan of Chris Commons. He never has been. We've seen it. I mean, I've said long before, when he wasn't getting a game, we've come out and said that's somebody that should be getting a game. He doesn't have the athleticism of some of the other players, but it's not just all the time about running. You need some other qualities, and other Celtic players don't have the kind of qualities that Chris Commons offers. Yeah,
I think also in this one, I don't think he fancied him. I think his hand was forced to eventually put him back into that Celtic side. But the one thing I would say in defence of the manager, players don't like getting taken off. Yeah. Some of them kick bottles, some of them, you know, get frustrated. Continuation of his anger towards them was, I thought, over the top.
Yeah, the good thing about it, if anything, is it wasn't taking off the jersey and throwing the jersey down. I think that is just a no return. But for me, the worrying thing was it wasn't directed at the manager. It was directed at Collins.
Initially it was the manager that got it.
But you know, it was then transferred to them. So it must have been. There seems to be something just lying there. You know, it seems to be a sort of an ongoing thing. You know, when you direct it particularly at somebody. Yeah,
I was wondering whether maybe they told him just to be quiet and sit down or something like that, and then he reacted, because you could tell it was quite clear it came home that he was also pointing to the fans and saying even they can't believe I've come off, because the fans were singing. They're telling you that I should have still been on that field.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as the overall game is concerned, I don't think Chris Commons should be the burning issue. The back line is woeful, and you know, when you consider the manner of the goals that were scored, I mean, if it's not one full back on one end, there's I mean, Boyata.
If you look at his career stats, actually, he hasn't played an awful lot in his time. I think he's about 23 years of age now, but he's never been a regular player anywhere he's been. So he is a squad player. And to be fair, you know, they've got players out there. They get, is it Stevanovic? What do you call him?
Szymanowicz.
Szymanowicz is out. Mulgrew could also play centre half. They've sold Van Dijk. You know, so they've lost players as well, and they've not got the players that maybe they'd want to have in.
Yeah.
And then, see, when they lose the first goal, they then have to try and play a different way, and then they become affected by that, so because they're always chasing the game. And that suited Molde, because they are a counter-attack team. The biggest problem Celtic have had is they can't deal with teams playing like that.
Yeah, but with all due respect, Gordon, Celtic always lose a goal.
Well, nearly every game they have been losing. I know.
This is the problem.
Especially in Europe. I mean, in Europe they've been unable to defend, even at times, and we've seen the games that
will come eventually from fans' unrest and then a board who will react to it. Here's Ronnie Dyler's record in European 23, won 8, drawn 7, lost 8. It's a win ratio of 35%. Now, at the end of the day, that's not put up there to basically condemn the man. That's just a statement of trophy, then he's still in a job. If it is to try and engineer Celtic into European competition, let's just say the Champions League group stages, then he's somewhere in the region of 30 to 40 million pounds down on the experience of what he's tried to get Celtic. I always think Judgment Day is coming day after the match at Pittodrie. They'll be long gone out of Europe by then, and if Aberdeen are within a cat's whisker of them, then I think a lot of questions will be asked.
Yeah, I think that's the big one. If they are in a cat's whisper of them,
or even a whisker. None of us can say it.
Well, what they'll do is they'll do what they did last year. They'll start digging up records to be broken. To keep the fans hanging on in there, like, going a winning run of 18 games, losing goals. But the bottom line is, his ratio there is against Europa Cup sides. It's not against Champions League sides. No. That's the worrying thing, that the 15 games there are defeats against Europa sides. And the dramatic fall from Celtic being a team challenging in the groups to get into the last 16 to now being Europa Moselrans, if you want to call them that, is a dramatic fall, and it's just because of the quality of the players that have been brought in.
It's a good point, because I'm looking here: Molde, Legia Warsaw, NK Maribor, Salzburg, Dynamo Zagreb, Inter Milan and Malmo. I would suggest to you only one of them is potentially a Champions League team at times.
Inter Milan, yeah, exactly. I agree with that, and I think that's the thing. Is if it had just been, obviously Champions League teams have been playing, then you'd have said that record is okay. It's ordinary, but it's okay. But because it's the fact it's also the judgment will start to come depending how they do. They've got they'll get 7 points, then it's 4, and then a couple of 2s. So it's not over yet. And they've got 2 home games. If they can turn that around and pick up the points from those 2 home games and get into second top spot, then it'll all turn. If they were to finish bottom of that group, for example, though, he's then under pressure.
Just out of curiosity, are they buying 4 defenders at that point before these 2 games? I mean, that's the point.
They might have the centre halves back, other people back in. They might have other players, so who knows? They might strengthen.
It's all ifs, buts, and maybes. Long way to go, but Ronnie Dyler will be in charge of Celtic for the weekend's match on the Sunday against Dundee United. Here are the fixtures. We'll be talking about them in greater depth in the second part of the programme, but this is how it looks for the weekend. Don't forget Peter and Ruffy's Saturday football show on the air from 2 o'clock. Aberdeen against Motherwell, Dundee, Kilmarnock, Hearts against Ross County, Inverness, Caledonian Thistle against St Johnstone, and Partick Thistle against Hamilton, with that Celtic Dundee United fixture taking place a day later, which means Aberdeen, Ruffy, could go back to the top of the table if they can get one over on their old player, Mark McGee, and their old boss.
Yeah, I think that's the fixture that we'll all be looking at. We'll be looking at to see if Aberdeen can dig themselves out of the hole that they're in, and I'm sure Derek McInnes will be looking for some kind of reaction from the players. There's no doubt about that. It's incredible the run that they went on at the beginning of the season to where they are now, so he'll have to put his finger on how that has all gone wrong and get it turned rapidly.
Yeah, 3 straight league defeats so far, 4 on the trot for Aberdeen. You couldn't have, I don't think anybody would have predicted that, Gordon.
You wouldn't have, and we all thought that, if they could keep the run going, the Celtic would be the team getting put under pressure. I mean, if you look at the actual points it's lost, they could be 7 points clear of Celtic at the moment if they'd kept their run going, and tomorrow they could have gone 10 clear.
Yeah, OK, we will talk about the other matches coming up in the Premiership. We'll also look to Championship, League One and League Two. Small matter of the Manchester Derby as well to talk about. Coming up after the break, right after the break, it is Hearts, it is Hibs, it's Rangers, and of course we'll look at that UEFA report into the state of the game. It's all coming up. Alan Ruff alongside me, Peter Martin, and our bookroom guest, Gordon Smith.
Hi, I'm Chris Sutton. To win this beautiful signed shirt from me, which club did Celtic sign me from?
Hi, I'm Craig Turnbull, and don't forget you can watch the PLZ Soccer News headlines Monday to Friday by clicking on the link below.
Welcome back to Peter and Ruffy's Football Show. Alan Ruff is alongside me, Peter Martin, and our bookroom guest, the regular on the Friday night, the experience of Gordon Smith.
The Boot Room, sponsored by Third Dimension Framing.
Game of the weekend for me in the Premiership is undoubtedly Tynecastle. Do you share that view, Gordon Smith?
Yeah, I do actually. I think you're right. I think it's a real test here. We've seen Hearts had a really good start to the season, gone off a little bit. Strong side. Robbie Nielsen wanting them to come back. But I watched Ross County last week against Aberdeen, and they were very impressive. I mean, it was a 2-0 win, Peter, and it could have been more. I mean, they missed a few chances. So you're looking at that game and you're thinking, you know, looking at all the fixtures, basically you'd fancy Aberdeen to beat Motherwell if they can get back to their form. But the other games, I think, are all tight.
Yeah.
But I think that one at Tynecastle tomorrow will be a cracking game.
Yep, Aberdeen, a chance to go back to the top of the table. But Hearts, they've only lost once at home, and Ross County just continue to astound us, Ruffy. They've only lost one away from home.
Yeah, and again, you know, the boy Graham's come into the striking zone with the two boys I've got who are finding the net very regular. I don't expect the three of them to be playing, but certainly the confidence is there for everybody to see. And but I think Tannadice will be a hard one for them. I think it'll be very close. I don't think there's much between the two sides. Although Hearts won last week there, it wasn't like a convincing win, but certainly at home with the crowd they've got behind them and everything, I think Hearts might just sneak that one.
We're looking at stats, Ruffy. You saw the stats with Ronnie Dyler, but I was checking that Ross County have actually won 17 of their last 27 competitive games. I mean, that's a good run, isn't it? I mean, they really had a great run at the end of last season, and they've started this season well too. So they're a hard team to beat. Yeah,
absolutely. I just wish we had picked them from time to time in our treble bet at the weekend, because we've been murder, to say the least. Dundee against Kilmarnock, Inverness Caledonian Thistle will take on St Johnstone, and Partick Thistle against Hamilton Accies at the bottom end. Thistle now changing as a team, Ruffy, in your mind?
Well, I was up there during the week, obviously, with the League Cup. You know, I think it was 23rd of October. It's amazing, you know, when you get a couple of wins. Even the wee cleaner's going about with a smile on his face, and the kit man's going about with a smile on his face. And it doesn't matter what club you're at, when you're on a losing run, you know, the whole place is depressed. But it's amazing when you get a couple of wins. You know, the heads get lifted, the banter's going about, you can hear laughter in the corridors, and the whole place is buzzing. So I would expect him to possibly get another one at the weekend.
Yeah, Ruffy. Don't forget, it's at Alan Ruff on Twitter, who's tipping Partick Thistle to win that match against Hamilton Accies, because the Accies fans certainly have got you in their sights, Ruffy. I'm distancing myself from you on that one, and I might go for a draw. Into the Championship, guys. If confidence is the key, then St Mirren got an extra day off for their performances of late. They've got Rangers, Mark Warburton clearly hoping his side can get 11 straight wins in the league. Yeah, I mean, it keeps putting the pressure on other teams, Peter, if they do get another victory. I mean, because you have a group of teams below. I mean, they're all playing each other. I mean, Falkirk, you know, lost to Hibs during the week there. There was a bit of controversy over that one. Wraith Rovers are on a very good run at the moment there, so they're competing for that
those 3 other places if Rangers keep this form going. But Hibs, I mean, I was listening to Alan Stubbs, he thinks they can get there. St Mirren are still a long way. I mean, if you look at St Mirren just now, they've got 10 points and Rangers are sitting there with 30. So you think there is a big gulf between the two of them. But St Mirren have got a few good players that they're actually underperformed to a degree. And Rangers' form hasn't been good, although they've been getting results of late. Their form has gone back a bit. Everyone's saying it, that they're not playing as well. So that'll be an interesting game on Sunday. Yeah,
I think game of the day in the Championship for me, Roffy, is Raith against Hibernian. 5 straight wins for Ray McKinnon's side. And Alan Stubbs, I was well impressed with how solid they looked at the back in midweek. Obviously, they don't have their most key player, Alan Muir, the referee this weekend. He's at Hearts Ross County, but nevertheless, they've got players who can score goals.
Yeah, and I think the good thing about this league is every time we talk about games, it's a test for this team and a test for that team, and that makes it so competitive. And it is another test for Hibs that they're going up there to a team on form. It's a team that they were dropping points to last year, but again, as you've said, at Falkirk in the midweek, they seen out the game. It was something they weren't doing last year, and they'll really have to do it again tomorrow, particularly with the Rangers game coming up. You'd want to go into that game with a win.
Absolutely, and it's crucial because this game tomorrow, I mean, Raith are up there, Hibs, so one of them is going to lose points, maybe even both if it's a draw, obviously. And if Rangers were to get the win, when Hibs play Rangers next week to Easter Road, then you're looking at a scenario there where they'd have to win there, or else the gulf would become practically, I think, unmatchable.
Yeah, I think a lot of people thinking the next couple of games could determine whether it's all done and dusted or not. Here's how the fixtures look in the Championship for the weekend. If you are going out, if you're close to any of the grounds in the Premiership, Championship, League 1 or League 2, get out there and support Scottish football. I'm saying that with even more passion once we look into the UEFA report that's been released today. But Dumbarton, Falkirk, Morton against Alloa, Queen of the South, Livingston, Raith Rovers against Hibernian, and St Mirren against Rangers takes place on the Sunday. What about the League 1 fixtures for the weekend? There's what you can look forward to. Brecon City against Albion Rovers, Dunfermline for another tasty one when Dick Campbell goes back to his old club. Peterhead against Airdrie, Stenhousemuir, Ayr United, Stranraer against Cowdenbeath. And if you are a League 2 fanatic, here's what you can look forward to in the lower division. East Fife against Annan, Elgin City Arbroath, Montrose against Berwick Rangers, Queen's Park versus Clyde, and Stirling Albion against East Stirlingshire. Now, there was a UEFA report released which is obviously looking at the overall state of the game. Some of the key points of it, lads, which caught my eye, of course, the Scottish fans pay on average in the highest league the 5th highest per head for tickets to watch Premiership games. Are we getting value for money?
I don't think so, no. I don't think it should be at that level. I mean, the problem is you've always got to try and put prices in order that clubs, they're a business and they're trying to make money from different avenues. The problem we have at the moment is that the actual broadcasting rights have dropped a bit, so there's less money coming in that way. Sponsorships are hard to get, so therefore a lot of the clubs can only find to get the money through from the gates. But maybe that could be improved if the prices were a little bit better. The gates might go up. So I think that we shouldn't be fifth. When you consider some of the costs, how expensive it is to live in some of the other countries in Europe, then you have to say our costs are quite high. I
don't think it's fair to compare anything that we do with the top 5 countries in Europe, but you look at the revenue, just picking up on the points that Gordon's making, revenue in Scottish football dropped by about £36 million. Now, I think a lot of that is down to the last 3 or 4 years and the predicament of Rangers, but over and above that, we're down at 23rd in the UEFA rankings because of our poor performances from other clubs in the European campaigns, Ruffy.
Yeah, basically that's what it is. There's no point in going on bleating about Celtic, and obviously with Rangers were our main team. The other teams have let them down. There's no doubt about that. Any team, I don't think there is a team who's on any extended run in Europe to help us collect more points. So we are suffering badly. That's why we've got to make sure that some of the teams that are going into the European competitions are organised enough and we'll never get back to where we were.
Yep, and I know we could do a programme on this next point, Gordon, but try and keep it as brief as 2.5 hours if you can. Yeah. But 26% of the leagues across Europe have 12 clubs. 45% of the leagues have more than 12 clubs in the top flight. I still think, you know, we'd be better off with a 16-team league. Whether that comes when we can actually change it at the end of the season, I don't know, but I still think we need that, and we also need to do more to get fans in, and I'd love to see standing back in the game.
Yeah, I agree. I think that some of the things I've proposed in the past, I think I would go for a 16-team league, but the problem you get then is that there's, would you say the antipathy towards it is because of they want 4 Old Firm games before TV when Rangers come back up to the top level. That's what they want. So you're looking at things that the clubs will think they're going to lose money through that. I personally, and I've proposed it before, would still go for the fact that 2 12s splitting into 3 8s. I know that everybody said, oh, they changed it in Switzerland. After 23 years, they got rid of it, as if to say it didn't work because they changed it after 23 years. I still think it would bring more excitement. I would also change to a summer season in Scotland. And by summer, I mean I would actually have a winter break of 2 months here and play in better weather, better conditions.
Well, there are a lot of points that you can argue with there at Peter and Ruffy, and also facebook.com/Peter and Ruffy. We'll talk about Gordon's points. Probably the biggest bugbear would be whether Ruffy and myself could take 2 months off in the winter, but nevertheless.
And what you would have to do is stop lying on the beach and go skiing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you ski, Ken?
Yeah, no, but I certainly, I'd have to learn if we had 2 months off, let me tell you. We'll discuss that in greater detail. We'll also have reporters at the key games across all the Premiership and Championship matches. We'll look at League One and League Two as well, and we'll keep you up to date with the goals going in across the Premier League in England too. It's all on the show tomorrow at 2 o'clock, but from Ruffy, Gordon Smith and myself, good night.